Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to yet another episode of the Schoch Factor Podcast, and Happy New Year. With the new year, we have some exciting new developments with the Schoch Factor Podcast, starting off with the fact that Coach Rooney will not be with us for the month of January. He is going into a dungeon to write conference previews, which is a lot of work, so we're going to give him some time to focus on that. Also, for the 25th straight season, his beloved Carrots fantasy football team did not pull off the fantasy football title, so I'm sure he's focused on the rebuild right now, getting those conference previews in for you. But in the meantime, what we have here at the Schoch Factor Podcast, what we're going to do for the month of January, is bring you stories and tales and just highlight college baseball journeys straight from the players themselves. So each week there will be 2 episodes, one on Monday, one on Thursday, where we will be talking and interviewing different college baseball players from all conferences, all divisions, all over, just to get a glimpse of what the college baseball life is like leading up to the 2024 season. So, without further ado, we're starting it off with our boy Evan Sleight, who is a college baseball journeyman like myself. He started his college baseball career at the University of Virginia, which is where I met him way back in 2019, the fall of 2019. Then, after his freshman year at Virginia, he transferred to Rutgers, played there a couple of years, had a lot of success, played summer ball in the Cape Cod League, the MLB Draft League. He's been all over, and now he is taking his talents to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So let's get right into it and hear from the man himself. So, Evan, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Schoch. Thank you so much for having me on. When you told me you wanted to talk to me, I was so excited. So just
Nah,
pumped to
dude,
be here.
I'm just fired up that there's people I played with still in the college game. It makes me happy. It makes me feel a little youthful, if I'm being honest. It just brings me back because a lot of the time I'm like, wow, I'm really washed up. Like, I'm old now. But this takes me back. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for still being in college baseball. I mean, it.
Hey, man, of course. I'm just trying to play in as many conferences and be at as many schools as I can. So it's great.
Yeah, of course. So naturally, you start off at UVA, you transfer to Rutgers, now you're transferred and you're at Alabama getting ready for your first season down there. But I got to know, how'd you get your foot in the door? What was your high school recruiting story like, getting recruited by UVA and all of that?
Definitely. So I was a three-sport athlete growing up, played football, played hockey, baseball. And it just happened that the baseball recruiting, it was a little sooner than the others. I know there's been some rule changes, so I don't think that it's the same as it used to be. But, um, I started talking with Coach O'Connor, and I really love the stuff they did there. There's a reason why they're in Omaha just about every time you check. Um, they're super disciplined, great guys. And that was the place I wanted to end up. And it just so happened that I got injured and COVID hit, and it would made the most sense for me to get out of there. But I'm extremely thankful for them. And that part of my journey, it still means a lot to me, even though it wasn't the place that I ended up playing most of my career at.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we'll get into the injury in a little bit, but playing multiple sports, I feel like you don't talk to many baseball players that were also hockey guys. I feel like that's a more rare breed just because they're two very different climates for the sports. So, what was Evan Sleight, the hockey player, like?
No doubt. I mean, I was a goalie, so I was a little bit
Okay.
crazy, stereotypical goalie. I was also a catcher at the time, so it kind of went hand in hand. Um, I was lucky enough to be on a pretty good hockey team. Played with Sal Frelick, who's actually in the big leagues. Who was an absolute stud. Like that kid, he played football too. I mean, that kid did everything. Was on the Junior Wizards. Hockey is a great time. I don't miss it now just because, being a goalie in practice, you get pucks off the Adam's apple, pucks off the collarbone. It gets a little old, but at the time I was loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like, I feel like hockey to baseball translates so well. Like, you got to be a little bit off mentally to do it, I feel like, in the sense that, like, it's hard to do. It's hard to play both sports.
I mean, it is very true, and especially now, hockey is all times of year. Similar to kind of how baseball is a little bit more in the South, the West Coast, but putting on some about putting on the the goalie pads or putting on the skates when it's about 10 degrees out and they're still wet from last night's practice. Yeah, it's just something you got to grind right through.
Yeah, and I feel like that has to translate to the baseball field, especially, baseball programs a lot of the times our travel isn't as luxurious. We have a lot of games, so you got to get ready for that. You got to get ready for the soggy skates as well as the soggy turf shoes for the bus rides home. So
no doubt.
It all translates. Now, I'm not first learning that you're a hockey guy right now in this podcast episode because I already knew that from playing with you, but it never stood out more than at the end of the fall at UVA, our first year there. And I found out you were hurt the whole time. And it was a broken foot, right? I'm not misremembering that.
Yep. Ankle, foot, same thing.
Okay, yeah, same. Broken appendage that's the furthest away from your head. So you played the whole fall on a broken foot. How'd you do that? How'd you manage that kind of? Because I feel like for a lot of guys coming in their freshman year, it's like, okay, I need to go in and earn a spot, and you're doing it. You're already a few steps behind, not in the sense that you were behind development wise, but behind in the fact that your foot hurts.
Yeah, I mean. It was definitely a challenge. Was just pushing through, kind of just dealing with it. Didn't really want to miss anything and kind of got it checked out. And there wasn't really anything too apparent. So it wasn't like I was super aware of it. But yeah, like I said, I just knew it would be very hard to sit out and miss stuff and not be a part of the team because, I love all the guys and it was a great time, and it just kind of ended up working out how it did without going into too much detail.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I could hardly do the conditioning when I was fully healthy, and you were just over here like, yeah, whatever, I'm fine. Just toughening up. It was really cool to see as a fifth-year guy. I'm washed up. I'm old. Excuses come easy when your body's old. And you see this young, spry kid who's like, yeah, my foot's broken. I just lapped you again. So I appreciate you keeping me fresh there.
No doubt. And now I'm a fifth year, and I see the same stuff with the freshmen. And, hey, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It comes at you fast. It really does. You don't see it coming, and then one day you wake up, you're at Alabama, you're playing in the SEC. So, but before you did that, before you went and transferred to Alabama, you didn't just go UVA to Alabama. You went to Rutgers for a little bit. So I got to ask, what stood out about Rutgers that made you want to go play there?
No doubt. So I'd actually known Coach Owens just from being a local guy. I mean, he's got 1,000 career wins. He's a stud. He just knows how to win. He was at Bryant before. So when I was in the portal and I started talking to him, it just was apparent that was a guy I really wanted to play for. And, Rutgers had been good in the past, but it had been probably a decade or so, maybe more since, they had been super relevant. And I knew that a lot of the Jersey kids, those kids can play and they're tough. So it ended up working out great. Coach Owens, Coach Petaruto, Coach Monahan, Coach Garza ended up coming and joining after I had him at Virginia. And it was a great experience. Some of my teammates were incredible. Chris Brito, Ryan Lasco's a stud. I played with some awesome players. Dan DiGiorgio. I could just keep going on and on.
Absolutely. And you bring up a great point. New Jersey has the most college baseball talent per capita of any state. And I understand Texas is great. I understand the South has a lot of really good baseball, but something about the state of New Jersey, they're just so jam-packed. I think it's because they're mad. I don't know what they're mad at. I don't know what it is, but they're just they have the biggest chips on their shoulders of any players I've seen. And I don't think I'm outlandish in saying that. And so being at Rutgers, I feel like you really got to feel the brunt of that force.
No doubt. I mean, being from Boston, I thought we had a chip on our shoulder. But those Jersey guys, they can play and they're tough. And that was what they preached. And we had some really good seasons. We didn't end up getting to a regional, but, we played our hearts out. And we definitely helped put Rutgers, I don't want to say back on the map because that makes it sound like they were gone, but definitely helped get them in the spotlight again.
Oh, absolutely. And that whole regional piece, there's a lot wrong with that part. I think you definitely should have. But I'm not one of the rule makers who gets to pick who goes and who doesn't. If I were, you'd be saying, hey, we got them back to regionals. They're back on the map. So that's cool.
We
But
lost some games that really would have helped us get in. So at the end of the day, being in the Northeast with the strength of schedule that we have, you just can't afford to lose a midweek or a series in the Big Ten. So, although it stunk not to get in, it kind of was, our own doing at the end of the day, but it would have been cool.
yeah, I'm with you there. And it's interesting. So you transferred from UVA to Rutgers before Papa Garza and Coach
Oh yeah.
Garza transferred. Okay, so did you talk to him at all before he came, or was it just kind
So
of like you saw it and it's like, oh, cool?
I remember, I don't know if I'd heard about it before, but we had like a team meeting to start the year. We were sitting down in one of the athletic buildings, and Coach Garza walked in the door, and me and Jason Hoops was on my team too, who was also at Virginia, and we both look at each other. We're like, "Is that Coach Garza?" So it was crazy. He's a great coach. He knows what he's talking about. He had our infield like I've never seen before. He gets the guys working, and he's had some studs under him, and he's been awesome.
Absolutely. And I feel like Rutgers just kind of looked at the UVA roster and said, hey, we'll take two of your best beers. That's what we're going to do. You and Garza, I don't know what y'all's secret is, but you guys keep it crisp. You keep it clean. So I was very happy to see that, you weren't just going to Rutgers alone. I remembered Hoops was there, but
Yep.
bringing Garza too, that's a big add in my opinion. Great guy to be around.
No doubt. He really is.
Now, in transferring, it's always interesting because, you hit the portal and it's like you hear from a lot of these coaches that you've reached out to before, you might have talked to before, some of them might have even offered you. Was Alabama ever one of the schools that you had talked to in high school, like getting recruited, or was it something that kind of emerged your most recent trip to the portal?
No doubt. So actually, I did talk to Coach Vaughn out of high school when he was at Maryland. And then, it kind of just emerged when I entered the portal that, that might be a place that I wanted to end up. I knew Tommy Seidel, who played outfield, who actually went to my rival high school. He's probably one of the most feared football players at St. Seb's, and they got some studs. And he had a homer against us, but that's besides the point. But, there were some good schools that, had some great coaches, but I ended up ultimately just choosing Alabama because having a little bit of familiarity with it, and then also knowing that I wanted to end up in the SEC and test my luck there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's such a cool time for you to do it too, because, Coach Vaughn's getting his first dip of the toes coming from the Big Ten to the SEC. You're coming from the Big Ten to the SEC. He's probably seen you around a time or two. I completely didn't even recognize the fact that he probably recruited you while he was at Maryland, being a Northeast guy. It makes more sense. So it was really cool to see all of that come together and you make it there. So now you have officially been on the roster at 3 out of the 5 Power 5 schools. So I got to ask, how many years of eligibility do you have left? Because I played with you freshman year. I don't think that means anything these days. I don't understand how eligibility works. But how many years you have left, and do you plan on conquering the other 2 powers?
I think I would really need to pull some strings to conquer the other 2. We'll keep it off the record books, but I don't think I have any left. And, like I said, just glad where I ended up, and maybe would have liked to test out some of the other conferences, but just didn't have enough time.
Yeah, truly. I mean, the West Coast too far from home for you. I completely understand it. Can't make it happen. And then the Midwest, I mean, being in the SEC, you're going to play against a lot of guys in all of these conferences, so you'll get a little bit of everything. But I got to know, looking forward to the 2024 season, is there a series you're particularly excited for coming up that, maybe it's an away series at a cool park or just a team you've always wanted to play against or anything like that?
There's not one I can really specifically point out. I'm just excited for all of them. Baseball in the South is just different, as you know, and I'm just super excited to be a part of the SEC. And we had fans at our practice. Like, I've never seen that before. So that alone, I'm excited about that. So you're telling me we're going to go play at some stadiums that are going to be packed, and we have an awesome fan base. And Tuscaloosa is great. So I'm just excited about everything.
Yeah, I feel like that was a bad question on my end. I know you as a person. You're in a new environment, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. It's going to be sick. You're going to get to play at so many different cool places. So
No doubt.
I'm really excited for you. I, with Coach Vaughn being new to Alabama, you're coming in a new guy. He's a new guy. What has he been like? What's his coaching style like?
Absolutely. I mean, he's just super straightforward. He preaches ownership, toughness, and grit, and he just embodies that every day. And I think that's part of the reason why his teams have been so successful is because he's a man of his word. And he's just himself every day. Um, he leads. He knows when to lead us. He knows when to push us. And that's the same can be said for all the other coaches: Coach Papio, Coach Mo, Coach Jackson, um, Coach Wood. Keep going, Coach Mikey. I mean, even to the support staff. I mean, it just can be seen all the way through his leadership, and it's just been awesome. That's all I can really say.
Yeah, no, and their whole staff. I mean, there's a ton of awesome names you just mentioned. One of my favorite. I know I talked about feeling a little bit young because I'm talking to you. You hit me with feeling old again, bringing up Papio. I remember watching him play at UVA in a regional against UVA
Yep,
way back in the day, and I believe he went off a little bit. So he was
I
someone
wouldn't
I
be
remember.
surprised.
I remember just being from Maryland and being a fan of UVA. I was like, wow, that guy, he might be the best ever. So we're back to feeling old. I'm back to earth. But no, it seems like down there, the whole coaching staff is just a lot of guys who have been loyal to each other throughout their careers. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't see in college base or don't understand as much about
Yeah,
college baseball is like when when a new coach gets hired somewhere, you aren't just hiring that coach. You're like hiring the hitting coach, the pitching coach, the assistant coach. You're hiring their whole staff. And
yeah.
so it looks like to me, you got a really fun staff to be around down there.
Oh, it's been great, and last year with Bama going to a super, I mean, the talent's been there, and they've had some great teams. So I think they're the perfect hire for this job because they just really have taken in all the returning players, the new guys, and I mean they've just built a lot of camaraderie, and that's sometimes hard to do, especially with new players. Not to mention a new coaching staff. So it's been great.
Yeah, and I can't imagine how difficult. I feel like it would be really tough for new coaches to kind of wrangle in the upperclassmen too, because they've had this culture, they've had this environment, they've gotten used to of okay, when I show up to the field, this is what to expect, this is what's going to happen. So having that experience under his belt, where I'm not saying upperclassmen everywhere whenever a new
Yeah.
coach comes in is like, oh, this guy, but some of them might have really liked the old coach or might have really been influenced by them. So it's a very tough position to be in, but I feel like just watching y'all play, you guys have meshed really well together this fall. Now, moving along, one thing, what would you say have been the biggest changes from level to level, whether it be ACC to Big Ten or Big Ten to SEC, or even a leap through the transitive property of the transfer portal, ACC to SEC, whatever it may be? What would you
Yeah.
say the biggest difference is?
I mean, first and foremost, I think there's a lot of great players everywhere, and a lot of that gets mixed just with all the publicity that some of these super high level teams get because sometimes the Big Ten doesn't get as much recognition as it should, and I think there's plenty of good players. Like one of my buddies from Massachusetts, Matt Shaw, is probably the best player I've ever played with. Um, and there's guys like Max Anderson and Bryce Matt. There's some studs in the Big Ten, but that being said, I think some of the rosters might just be a little deeper in the SEC. And I didn't get a full taste of the ACC. Obviously, our Virginia team was incredible, and that's a team that ended up going to Omaha a couple times. So, there's been good players everywhere, good arms everywhere. Maybe the depth is the biggest difference, and then aside from the team, some of the facilities are just insane.
Yeah.
And facilities don't make or break a team. But it's just crazy to look around and see some of the stuff that some of the other schools in Alabama they offer. So we're just super lucky.
Oh yeah, it's just insane the different investments programs will make pretty much based on what conference they're in. So
Yeah,
it's really cool to see, and they're spending at all levels, of course. But I don't think anyone does it quite like the SEC, but I mean, I love that you get to reap the benefits of that because you've been through all these different facilities, different schools, and now it's like, okay, well, let's test this one out, see how much we like it.
Yeah, no doubt. I've been really making an effort to just enjoy everything, and baseball is such a fleeting sport. So, I've just been enjoying every practice, every challenging thing, just take it in and make the most of it because you never know what's going to happen next.
Definitely. So, is there anything about Alabama's facility that you're just like, this is ludicrous, like this is off the walls? Why does this exist? Is there any like weird or wacky stuff? I know some schools they have like lazy rivers for their student athletes. There's all sorts of different things, but is there like one thing that sticks out to you?
I can tell you that the pool table gets pretty aggressive. There's some there's some good pool players. My roommates, Joey Rubin, Colson Buchanan, and Ian Petrus, they can play some nasty pool. Um, yeah, it gets
So,
pretty. There's some good competitions. Ping pong too. Ben Hess can play awesome ping pong. It gets crazy in there.
so
Crazy.
I know nothing about playing pool except the little crease you make with your thumb and your pointer finger to shoot or to rest the cue. Whatever angle that crease is facing, that's where the stick's going to go. I recently learned that on TikTok. Haven't used it yet, but if you want to use that, take that. Feel free, use it. Let me know if it works.
Hey man, I'm competitive, but I'm not good at pool, so I try not to play it too much. I don't stay on the table long because I'll just get kicked right off. But shout out to Miss Jenny for getting us some new pool sticks because some kids were getting a little angry and they might have been broken, but that's here
You're
and there.
you're a smart competitor, and stay away from the broken pool cues. It never ends up well.
No doubt, no doubt.
Now, between your time at UVA, Rutgers, and Alabama, this will probably be my hardest hitting question for you. I'm going to make you decide a little bit here. Who had the best food? Just like town wise. I mean, the
Yeah, yeah,
dining hall food's dining hall food.
that's a good question. I mean, so far the Tuscaloosa food's been unreal. The one thing that it's missing that Jersey had over it was definitely pizza.
Mm.
Um, the pizza in Tuscaloosa, I'm yet to find a place that's like elite, but I haven't really been looking. I probably just got to network a little bit in the community and find a new spot. But the food's been awesome. There's some really great Chuck's Fish, Five, just great food.
Yeah.
Barbecue too.
And that's the opportunity cost of it too. Like you just spent a lot of time in Jersey. You probably
Oh
aren't going to
yeah,
find the same level of pizza. That's just because, it's different prioritization. But you got to capitalize. You're in the SEC for just this year, correct? It's just this one.
yep.
So you got to capitalize. You got to eat all of the big fried meat you can down there. There's all sorts of crazy things, I'm sure.
I
So
mean, the dining hall alone is just absurd. I think now that I think about it, that place is just it's crazy to be able to go in there and get 3 meals a day, and the meals are just unreal.
really, what's the best dining hall meal they got there?
I mean, they had snow crab legs a couple weeks ago,
Oh my
and
gosh.
yeah. So
All you can eat?
anytime you're looking forward to the dining hall meal is, it's a good spot. All you can eat.
That
All you
is
can eat.
insane. The best thing about snow crab legs is they're an excuse to drink butter, which I'll die on that hill. I will die on that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, now that you've spent a full fall at Alabama, you've gotten to do the inter squads, all the practices. Do you have a favorite new teammate?
It's definitely going to be too hard for me to pick. There's just, the crazy thing about this team is, and a bunch of the other teams I played on too. It's not to say that this team is, any better than anyone I've ever played on, but everyone just gets along super well, and we got a really close knit group, and it's just been really awesome. And there's one guy, Joey Rubin. You'll see us together a lot. He's from Charlton, Massachusetts. I will say.
Okay.
Some people think we look like brothers. I've known him since I was 10. We played in the same travel ball program, so I've known him for longer. So I'll just stick to that.
You're going to confuse a lot of Alabama freshmen that go to play in the Cape Cod League if you and him look like brothers because they're going to just expect, like, okay, everybody's going to be tan, dark hair, solid beard. It's not necessarily the case in Massachusetts, but that's hilarious. I mean, you're the type of guy. You're kind of like me, where it's just like I just kind of love everyone. I'm just happy to
Yeah.
be here, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here. You're just such a positive person in college baseball, which really makes me happy. Makes my job way easier to do, way easier to talk about people I like. So I appreciate that. Does Alabama? Do you guys have a weird arm slot guy? Who would you say is your weirdest, if you have one?
We have this lefty Connor Ball. His ball moves like nothing I've ever seen before.
Really?
It it's low lefty arm slot, and it looks like it just takes off. And every
Oh,
time he throws it up and in on me. So
it's
I
just
mean,
all right. Yeah, we'll
yeah.
try again later. So yeah, hopefully
Hey,
next at bat someone
take
else
note,
is there.
everyone. Don't throw that pitch.
No, the weird arm slot guys to the if it was a left-handed hitter against a lefty pitcher, it's just so different that
Oh yeah,
you're never gonna see that. Like you might see some weird arm slot right-handed guys. The lefty weird slot guys are making a resurgence, which I'm very excited about. I'm
yeah.
thrilled
No, it's
about
great.
it. But you
No, and
never see
you were
that.
always a challenging at bat, man. I mean, when you were staring down over that glove, like you just knew something bad was going to happen.
Yeah,
And then the
I
last thing you want to do is have you toss that glove because you know that something bad just happened.
yeah, it was all about just having fun. I was
No,
blacked
I
out
know it
out
was
there the
great.
whole time. I'm the
When
same
I
way
saw
as
you
you
with
were.
that Dippin' Dots interview, I was so happy just because you'd be saying something like that at least 4 times a day. So it was about time that people recognized it.
No, I appreciate that. The weirdest thing about it was like afterwards, because we had that double header, so we
Yep.
played another game after, and I didn't realize like anything special was going on about it until like there were kids from my high school who went to South Carolina at the game, like hollering at me about it, and I'm like,
That's
"What are you
awesome.
guys talking about?" But like, that's been my favorite compliment to hear from my teammates, where they're just like, "No, that's just kind of Steve." So
That
I
was you, man.
appreciate you saying that.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I feel bad for the people who are like, "Oh, I'd want to be around this all the time," because I know it can be a bit much. So the five
Nothing but
hours
good
at the
memories,
field,
man. Nothing but good memories.
you got to bring the fun. But speaking of good memories, do you have a favorite ever college baseball game?
One that I played in or one that I've seen? 'Cause
Either
I think
one.
that's okay.
Either
I'm
one.
gonna
I'm
go.
cool with either.
Man,
It's tough for you. When I ask the first years and
that's a hard.
freshmen this, it's easy because
Yeah,
just 50. You, it's like, okay, we got to open the Rolodex. We got an
yeah. I
encyclopedia of
gotta really
games under
think
my
back.
belt.
I think it has to be the last game of the Cape Cod League Championship. Winning
Mm.
that with that squad was just awesome. That whole summer, we just had a great group, and it was really fun. I got to play with my teammate Chris Brito, who just signed with the Royals. I think is one of the most underrated players in college baseball. I mean, that kid can play. He's the home run leader, RBI leader at Rutgers. Matt Shaw, Eblin, who's also here at Alabama, who's another stud. I mean, he's one of the best infielders around. Yeah, that was a great time just being able to dogpile at the end of the summer, and especially being my home state, having some family there. So it was cool.
Oh yeah, and being from that area, I can't imagine how gratifying it is. Like, even if you just think about baseball in Massachusetts, you're like, I would love to play on the Cape, you know.
No
And
doubt.
so getting to do that and win a championship's awesome. It's going to be a hard one to top. I'm hoping you can top it this year. Not because I'm like, wow, that's not impressive. It is very impressive, but I want good things for my friends, you know.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So, last question, then I'll let you head out of here. What is one thing that, as a whole, college baseball fans can expect to see out of this Alabama baseball team?
It's a great question. You know, I think you can just expect a group that's going to be relentless. Um, we have a lot of fun regardless of what's going on, and we just stay super even keel. And we have a lot to prove still. This is a team that hasn't really been tested in the spring season yet because, as you know, the spring is totally different from the fall. So we're ready to just go, show up, and see what we're all about. And I'm just really excited to go out there and play with the guys, play for these coaches, and especially play for the fans who have been so loyal to us and are just biting at the bit, chomping at the bit to get after another spring. So I can't wait.
Absolutely. Being someone who lives by the beach, I am terrified of riptides. But above riptides, I am more scared of a relentless crimson tide. I don't know what that means entirely, but it sounds dangerous, and I am excited to watch it compete on a baseball field.
That's awesome. I'm really excited, and Roll Tide this weekend. It's going to be a big game for Bama versus Michigan. So,
Oh, absolutely. I feel like that's
Bama on
another
top.
huge perk of being there too, is the football culture of it all.
Well, so I obviously that Alabama football is superior to it's just one of the superior teams in college football. And then when you show up for the first time, not knowing how crazy the football games are, and there's 110,000 people singing Dixieland Delight in the fourth quarter, I mean, it gives you goosebumps every time. So it's
No,
crazy.
and getting
We
to
might
be a
have to have you
part of
down
it.
there sometime.
Absolutely. I'm going to have to try to make a trip down to Tuscaloosa this spring just because I hear it's pretty crazy. And I'm a fan of crazy. I don't know if you know that about me, but it's kind of my cup of tea. So I'll definitely be getting down to a game this spring. I got to see the Relentless Tide. I got to find out what that means. I'm assuming a lot of fastballs that are really fast and a lot of home runs, and I'm excited for that.
No, we're just gonna show up every day and do what we can, and we'll see where it takes us. Should be good.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to watch where it takes you, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your break to hop on and talk to me a little bit about your little bit of a journeyman college baseball career to this point, and looking into the crystal ball and seeing a little bit of what we can expect this spring. So, Evan, thank you so much again for taking the time.
No doubt. Thanks for having me. It's great talking to you again.
Of course, absolutely. Well, there you have it. That's all we have for this Monday's episode of the Schoch Factor Podcast. Thank you so much to Alabama's outfielder Evan Sleight for tuning in and sitting down and sharing his college baseball journey with us. If you like this episode and you want to hear more college baseball stories, make sure to subscribe to the Schoch Factor Podcast wherever you're listening. And stay tuned because this Thursday we'll have another exciting interview with fun people from college baseball. Thank you again to our sponsor, Soldier Sports, and just a reminder to leave a review of the Schoch Factor Podcast on the D1 Baseball Network. I'll talk to you later.